daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here for the Locked On Big 12 podcast. Today, it is October 10th, 2021, and we have a whole lot to get to on today's show, coming off one of the best weeks of college football I can ever remember. Period, point blank, end of discussion. It's going to be the weekend of the year. It featured many games which could have been considered the game of the year. There's only one, though, that really is going to end up being the game of the year, and that's OU Texas. First of all, make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at LO Big 12. Have a nice little recent run of picks, so go check that out there. Follow me at Josh Neighbors _ as well. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you follow us on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you guys get your podcasts. So if you can't watch, you're on the road or whatever, you can go ahead and give us a listen that way. On the flip side, if you listen on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever, you can find us at Locked On Big or just Locked On Big 12 on YouTube. So go check that out today. Rate, subscribe, comment. We love it. It helps interact, helps give me ideas as well when you guys comment and give me some thoughts, your thoughts on whatever's going on. So I've really enjoyed that so far. All right, 3 games from the Big 12 to talk about. We'll also talk about some results from the other teams that are joining the Big 12 conference because it was a pretty consequential week for a lot of those teams. BYU, UCF had a nice week. Houston gets a win on Thursday night, and also Cincinnati on Friday night getting a big win as well. Tough week, though, for BYU. We'll get to all of those teams. But let's lead off with the main attraction. It was the main event, if you will. Oklahoma and Texas yesterday played one of the best games I can remember. That's really the big, and just, Oklahoma getting the win, obviously, in the end. But in this, I want to start with kind of the entire day as a whole before we unpack the game. I love college football. I think it's just such a great sport. And over the last year or so, there have been a lot of conversations that I think have taken away from what makes college football awesome. I'm a huge fan of name, image, likeness. I think it's important. I think the discourse around it was a bit arbitrary and also took away sometimes what we like about college football, the kind of the arguing and just people being ridiculous, saying, I don't know how it's going to affect the locker room. It's still the same feel. This is, it's great for the kids to be able to make some money off their name, image, likeness. But that conversation caused some, I would say maybe negative discourse. There was a conversation about college football playoff expansion and whether those games should be on campus and how many teams there should be, or making it invitational, basically, as Danny Cannell says sometimes. We're giving everybody a fair shot to make the college football playoff. Then there was conference expansion, another negative conversation, because obviously I know Oklahoma and Texas fans are excited to join the Southeastern Conference, but it did leave the Big 12 in limbo, and it left for the rest of the country, if you will, asking a lot of questions about how are things going to look moving forward. Another conversation that made us feel really far away. I said it a bunch during this, during everything going on, but it felt like, the feeling that pick your favorite school and pick the feeling that you got as a kid or as a young adult or a college student or even now, the joy that you experience from going to games, the joy that we saw yesterday from a lot of Oklahoma fans and at times Texas fans. Those emotions and feelings, the conversations that we were having in the offseason made it feel like we were so far away from the actual great part of the sport, the joy, the thrill, the agony, the defeat, all of those things. And yesterday, to have a day across the board deliver in the way it did was a reminder to all of us of why we love the sport. It was not just the top dogs. It wasn't just about the best teams in the country. A lot of these teams that were playing were awesome teams, right? It was we saw a lot of great battles. It wasn't just about Ohio State and Oklahoma and Alabama. It wasn't just about those teams yesterday. Going on in that morning session, I was actually talking to one of my buddies. We were on Zoom, just chatting, watching some of the games early on. A friend of mine lives in New Jersey, and he was watching the Arkansas Ole Miss game and said, "Hey, you got to flip here right now." And I was watching the Texas Oklahoma game, and he says, "Hey, you got to flip here right now at 3:30, the 3:30, 4 o'clock window. Got to enjoy Iowa Penn State. I enjoyed Wake Forest and Syracuse. My dad is as a Wake Forest alum. Got to watch them have a terrific comeback in that game. I didn't even pay attention to Georgia in Auburn. The night session, you had Nebraska going back and forth with Michigan. I know there's two bigger brands, but to see Nebraska going back and forth was awesome. My Virginia Tech Hokies and Notre Dame were going back and forth in that game as well. Notre Dame steals a late win. Texas A&M with a backup quarterback goes and gets a victory. And you could have flipped around at a 5-minute period of time, and you could have seen Notre Dame hit that game-winning field goal. You could have seen A&M respond and get that touchdown. You could have seen Michigan force the turnover that got the win, all within a 5-minute span. You could have seen all of those things happen. And, I'm sure I'm missing some games, there in between. But there was so much great action going on yesterday. What a fantastic reminder of the joy that this sport brings all of us. There's a reason why we love it, and that is why we love it. This is just – it was a fun Saturday, man. It was such a fun Saturday. And let's get to Oklahoma, Texas. First, a quick word from our sponsor, Prize Picks. I hope you guys got in on it yesterday. They have awesome daily props for fantasy right now at Prize Picks for college. You can bet on over-under touchdowns, interceptions, yards thrown, all those kinds of things you can bet on at Prize Picks. You can do it for the NFL as well. Download the Prize Picks app today on your phone. It's available in most states. Use the promo code Locked On. That's LOCKEDON, Locked On, and you'll get a deposit bonus. They'll match you up to 100% of your first bonus, up to $100 today. So go to Prize Picks for that. All right, yesterday's top result that we have to get to in the Big 12 Conference. There's a reason why this game is always spectacular. There's a reason why this game was College Game Day, and it delivered in every single facet. Oklahoma, 55. Texas, 48. This game looked early like it was in some kind of trouble. But I was talking to my dad before the game. I was telling him, I said, hey, look, this game always kind of resembles an NBA game. This game always kind of has that feel of a basketball game going back and forth, right? Each team trading blows, responding, but going on runs, really. And Oklahoma got punched in the mouth early. Poor tackling led to a long Xavier Worthy touchdown. I thought DeMarvion Overshone was all over the place early on in this game, helps block the punt that gets them going. They were really just flying around, making plays. Bijan Robinson makes it 14-0. This game got to 28-7. Now, at that point, it felt like Oklahoma had a run in them. The question was, how big would the run be, and how would Texas be able to keep rolling? Key moment in this game, I thought, as we headed towards halftime, I thought Steve Sarkisian was a little too timid as we headed towards the half. I thought he could have gotten a bit more aggressive there towards the half, saved some more time, and maybe ended with better off than just a field goal to end the half. But obviously the big storyline in this game is Oklahoma making the quarterback switch, and they end up going to Caleb Williams. Now, a couple things. Something I was right about. Case Thompson definitely should be the guy for Texas. I was kind of on that before. Things I was wrong about. Caleb Williams coming into this game and playing as well as he did is an absolute revelation, because not sure if you guys caught this yesterday. I know the circumstances were a bit different, but yesterday Penn State had a young quarterback step into the game named Taquan Roberson, sophomore, who had to step into the game when Sean Clifford went down, and he really struggled. They struggled to block for him. The communication was bad. The offense fell apart. And I know it was on the road. This game was not a road game, but still the environment is really hostile. It amped up crazy, unbelievably juiced environment at the Cotton Bowl whenever Texas and Oklahoma get together, no matter what the records were, especially in a game like yesterday when it felt like so much was on the line there. But, you bring Caleb Williams into that football game. And I've said this a bunch. I've said, man, you want to throw I almost said rookie quarterback, a freshman quarterback behind an offensive line that hasn't been playing particularly well this year. And, I thought, and this was just like the Kansas State game. I mean, in general, let alone the Texas game, throw him into the fire. And he responded and was fantastic in relief. I think Spencer Rattler still has all the tools to be a good quarterback. What needs to change for him is the demeanor. And I'm not around him, but everything, you go back and watch the show QB1 and you hear people talk about Spencer Rattler. He's a great quarterback. It does not seem like the leadership qualities and the intelligence from a football perspective and also a team building leadership perspective are there. That team just had more life and belief with Caleb Williams at the helm. It's not an X's and O's thing. I think the offensive line was a lot better than it normally was, and they were getting pushed. But Caleb Williams was making plays, trying to make plays in a way that was it's hard to describe. It was different than Rattler. It was just this belief and just kind of this juice and this energy, and not always the most accurate. Didn't hit every single throw, didn't make every single correct decision. Could have thrown a couple balls away that he should have, but just the touchdown run really got it started, right? That long touchdown run that he had. But he just gives a spark, he gives an element, gives some juice, and also it seems like the leadership quality is there. Like he is just a magnetic guy. Interesting, they bring in later on in the game when they score down 8 touchdown. They bring in Rattler to run the play to point conversion, but ultimately this was what they needed. Also, Texas's front got worn down into this game. Kennedy Brooks was phenomenal. 25 carries, 217, 2 scores in this game, and the direct snap ends up getting the job done. But I thought the game really turned in the end when not turned, but the deciding play was Xavier Worthy deciding to take the ball out, because even though he did and Oklahoma scores, Texas scores again, Xavier Worthy actually the one who catches the touchdown. The problem is that you're going back and forth in shootout, and you've given Oklahoma, whose offense has totally come to life, you've given them the ball back with a chance to win this game, and they ended up doing so, right, with a great drive. Those direct snap plays, Oklahoma did a good job blocking, but Texas did not do a good job, I thought, on those direct snap plays of getting hats the football, getting guys the football. They kind of just waited for Kennedy Brooks to attack them. They kind of were caught off guard. And Oklahoma did a great job, I thought, of attacking on those plays. I thought Kennedy Brooks ran perfectly. I mean, just kind of the angles and the spaces he was taking. I haven't gone back and watched. I'll tell you what, guys, my phone was to the side during these games. I had on the computer on the second television screen, I had Baylor and West Virginia, but obviously that game was kind of a blowout, so I was able to turn my focus solely to Oklahoma and Texas, and I was barely looking at my phone. I focused so hard on these games. It's just so enthralling from pillar to post. But yeah, I mean, just to watch those couple direct snap plays work out absolutely to perfection, and Oklahoma runs one. I think they ran the first one. I might be wrong here. They don't run both the left side. Maybe the camera was flipped, whatever. But that play worked twice. They go left on that second one. Kennedy Brooks does a great job. Houses it. 3 seconds left to go. They end up winning the game. So for Oklahoma, like this, and I said this a couple weeks ago, this just might be what Oklahoma does this year. And the good thing for them, they are winning games in a variety of ways, with a variety of guys getting it done, right? Oklahoma's second quarter puts them over to the top, and their defense gets the stops against Tulane, Western Carolina, excuse me. Nebraska, their defense holds on long enough to get the job done in that game. West Virginia, their offense, I know the defense is great all game long. West Virginia's offense is pretty bad, but West Virginia gives them the ball back late in the game. Spencer Rattler drives into the field, get a score. Spencer Rattler on his game last week against Kansas State, and they take care of business in that game because of how opportunistic. I mean, there were the number of drives in that game were limited, but Oklahoma scored basically on all of their. I think they're pretty much all of their drives they were getting points on, and that was a testament to Spencer Rattler and the Oklahoma offense and getting the job done. this week. Caleb Williams is the catalyst. Special teams plays galore in this game. Lost in all of this, though. And once again, have to finish off the Oklahoma point. Like, this just might be what they do. They're at home next week for TCU, 7 o'clock. That feels like a dangerous spot for Oklahoma. Big letdown spot because we saw TCU at night West Virginia at night go into Oklahoma, and if it weren't for a false start and a bad snap, might have actually won the football game. But this is a TCU team that just played really well. We'll get to them in a little bit. That's a tough spot for them. But they might just be grinding out games the rest of the year. The real challenge for them, they've got TCU at home, at Kansas, Texas Tech at home. This is going to be let's answer some questions in this stretch. Baylor on the road, Iowa State at home, at Oklahoma State. All of those three teams, flawed in some ways, but present unique challenges that Lincoln Riley and his staff are going to have to answer. But I will say this. Whatever the type of contest it's been so far this year, Oklahoma has won the game. High scoring, low scoring. They've won a game 40-35. They've won a game 16-13. They've won a game now 55-48, They've won a game 23-16. Variety. That's the mark of a great team. Have they looked excellent yet on both sides of the ball? Have they had a comprehensive performance on both sides of the football against a good football team? No. They have. Against a great football team? No, they have not. But are they putting it together enough in certain spots to keep things going? Yes, they are, and they remain undefeated doing it. That's the big line for them. For Texas, lost in this, Bijan Robinson was once again fantastic in this game. Their offense just stalled the second half. The offense was not as killer as it was. And what hurts is, obviously, they've already taken the ball out of the end zone, but he goes for nine catches, 261, and 2 scores. Bijan goes 20 carries for 137 and a score. Casey Thompson's 20 for 34 for 388 and 5 scores. And you go back and just think, man, where did it go wrong for them? It's that second half. Here's what Texas did in the beginning of this game. They were able to rack up 38 points in the first half. Second half, only 10. It was punt, field goal, punt, downs, punt, touchdown. That's how their game ended for them. So that offense stagnated in the second half. And really, I think the drive, they turned it over on downs. They needed some points there. Ended up not getting it. They drove that ball deep, Oklahoma 24-yard line. And they were not able to get having turnover and down basically was the killer for them. Texas, but like, what a bad day also with A&M beating Alabama. Just a really difficult day if you're a Texas fan. They're a good football team. Their defense has a lot to work on. They've got some talent. I thought they were controlling the line of scrimmage early on in this game. That was one thing I noticed. But they go home next week and they host Oklahoma State in what is a really important game for them. They're going to be favorites. They should be. But can they bounce back? They once again, against good teams this year, they're against teams with equal talent level, Arkansas and Oklahoma. TCU, they get the job done, but they're a little bit better than TCU. We'll see what manifests itself this weekend, but a gut-wrenching loss. But still, I think they were so close, and get mad at them for finishing, but there's a lot of positives to take from this game, and you're Steve Sarkisian. Like, that team should have won, and they just ran into a great player in Caleb Williams. And I'm going to go down and break down more of it, like a harrowing performance from Caleb Williams, a spectacular Kennedy Brooks, an emboldened offensive line, it looked like, in the second half as well. So there's a whole lot more to get to in this game. We'll get to it as the week progresses, but the greatest football game I've maybe ever seen, I can't think of it. Maybe the Rose Bowl between USC Penn State is my favorite game I've ever watched, but this one was just absolutely batshit crazy. There's no other way to describe it than that. Batshit crazy is the best way to describe it. All right, one more word from our sponsors, and we'll keep moving on with these Big 12 games. Today's show is brought to you by Built.com. It is Built Bar, my friends. You guys know the deal. Go to Built.com today. Check out all the flavors of Built Bar that they've got there. They're covered in chocolate. They're delicious. If you can't find a Built Bar that you like, I'll be absolutely shocked. Coconut, almond, cherry, raspberry, mint brownie, peanut butter brownie, double chocolate, salted caramel. 17 to 18 grams of protein, only 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, and 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. And once again, guys, if you can't find a protein bar that you don't like, I don't know. I mean, like salted caramel, double chocolate, peanut brownie. Come on now. They're also the official protein bar of the U.S. track and field team. Go to built.com today. It's built.com today. Use the promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, LOCKED15 for 15% off today. All right, second game we're going to get to, it is Baylor getting a win over West Virginia, and in convincing fashion. We talked about it heading into this game, and Baylor once again 45-28. They get to 5-1, 2-4 against West Virginia. To wrap up Oklahoma 6-0, Texas now 4-2. So Baylor, this was a game where I was saying, look, if you want to show me you're a good football team, you'll rebound from that loss, you'll come back, and you'll be good to go. Well, mission accomplished. They absolutely hammered West Virginia. They went down 7-0 in this game. And then by halftime, they were up 28-10. So they went on a 28-3 run to end the half. Here's how they went touchdown to start the game. 3 straight drives with touchdowns. Gary Bohannon was fantastic. 18 for 29 for 336 and 4 scores. His best passing game. 32 carries for 171 on the ground for them. Tyquan Thornton, best game of the year. 8 catches for 187 and 2 touchdowns. Look, it's time to go with Garrett Green at quarterback. Maybe they don't trust the offense there, West Virginia, enough, but it's time to go with Garrett Green at quarterback. You're at 2-4. There's really no point to keep going, in this direction. Jared Dagey clearly is not the guy for this offense. Lenny Brown, another tough day, 12 for 44. Garrett Green did get a touchdown on the ground, but their defense had one bad game, which should be allowed. Their offense is not good enough to pick up the slack. Like you see, Oklahoma's defense had some really good games, and their offense, and they've had some bad games. Their offense picked it up. This was not that game, right? This was not that game for West Virginia. And your offense has to be able to do that sometimes. You got to be able to score the ball. And I think Oklahoma State might run into this problem later on in the season, but West Virginia's offense is so incompetent that not only West Virginia's offense has cost them the Maryland game. It almost cost them the Virginia Tech game. I mean, if that game goes the way it should, like West Virginia right now would have one victory, and it would be against LIU, right? They're 0-3 in conference. So they need to just go. I mean, they've got to make some kind of change because that offense is just absolutely killing them. It's not good enough. It's not efficient enough. They're 3 for 15 yesterday on fourth down, and we're not able. Once again, they ran the ball for 2.4 yards per carry. They committed a bunch of penalties. They only had the one turnover, but they absolutely got hammered. Baylor just Dave Aranda, man, like he figured it out. He absolutely took this offseason to figure out what he needed to do. Jeff Grimes called a phenomenal game. Makes you start to wonder how much time left he's got there. But here's what I'll say. Because this next stretch for Baylor could get a little ugly. BYU at home, Texas at home, at TCU, Oklahoma at Kansas State, and they're home for Tech in the end. They've got a 4-game stretch coming up here where they're going to be favored against BYU at home probably. The Texas line will be close. At TCU, they're probably going to be dogs. And Oklahoma, they're going to be dogs. Now, I think 2-2 in the stretch would be fantastic. They're playing 3 ranked teams in this next stretch. I don't know how far Texas will drop, but they're a top 25 team, let's be honest. So I would say right now, Baylor, just if things even go wrong in the stretch, you can go 1-3, right? It gets you to 6 wins. It gets you to a bowl game. And I think Baylor fans, if you said bowl game at the beginning of the year, they'd be really happy with that. But the fact that they've got an opportunity to do more, they've got a chance here if they can go on a little run to challenge, to maybe get into a Big 12 championship game. Yes, they dropped that game, but this was a game they had to win if they wanted to stay in that hunt. They got it done. And so Baylor still right there in this Big 12 championship hunt. And Gary Bohannon seems to be improving as he goes along. Last week, I know it's an exception because Oklahoma State's defense is just so nasty. But this week, they were absolutely on the money against a really good defense. TCU 52. TCU 52. Texas Tech 31. Oh, goodness. This was the Zach Evans, Kendre Miller show. Zach Evans goes 17 carries for 143 and 2 scores. Kendre Miller goes 12 carries for 185 and 3 scores. They run for almost 400 yards on the ground. Max Duggan just goes 8 for 10 for 104 and a touchdown. He was good. He was efficient. And they just punched Texas Tech in the mouth early. And Texas Tech's defense, we know it's been vulnerable. They had no answers. TCU, they had a touchdown, a touchdown, a touchdown. They had a pick six, they had a touchdown, and they took a knee end a half. So they scored on every single one of their offensive actual drives in the half. In the second half, they scored a field goal and then a touchdown. So on their first 6 actual drives, they scored a touchdown. And it got a little interesting late. Texas Tech scored and made it 45-31, but TCU ends up getting a first down at the 45-yard line, and Kendre Miller goes 45 yards to the house on the very first play. That was an onside kick that TCU ended up recovering. The house call it first play. TCU needed this win really badly, and when I've been so down on them this year, but they showed a version of their team this week that can give some other teams some problems. Now, Oklahoma is going to be a problem for them, but it feels like maybe it's one of those games where the defense just shows up for the night. If TCU's defense shows up, and we'll see what Oklahoma can do against the run. But it makes this matchup a lot more interesting. And for Texas Tech, I was really high on them. I was really hoping they could get that next win, but TCU just needed this win a lot more. And here's the thing. TCU is actually only 1-1 in the conference. They're 3-2 overall. They're 1-1 in the conference. And now they've got at Oklahoma, West Virginia, at Kansas State, so and then home for Baylor. So they could kind of put that push together, kind of look like that team that we thought. But Gary Patterson's group needed this, and they got it done. And I thought they did it in impressive fashion. I mean, they had no problem moving the football, and that's the thing with this offense. Like the entire year, this offense has had no problem moving the football. They took care of the football in this game, and Zach Evans, phenomenal. I will say, Steven Simcox brought up an interesting point the other day about his stamina. And I think it is something that's worth discussing, how he needs to work on that. That's part of the discipline stuff that he does need to work on moving forward. All right, other teams joining the Big 12 that are worth looking at this weekend. We had a couple from the AAC. Obviously, we know that Houston and Cincinnati, as well as UCF, are going to be joining, so we'll look at them. Houston gets a 40-22 win against Tulane on Thursday night. Nice win for them. They're 5-1 since that loss to Tech, and you could kind of argue they should be 6-0 with the way they should have beaten Tech and they didn't put their foot down. Cincinnati 52-3, taking an absolute 2x4 to the Temple Owls. They got to keep doing this. They should jump to number 3 this week in the AP poll. Now, what that means moving forward, I don't know, but they should. UCF 20-16, an ugly game. They're still dealing with the fact that they're playing a backup quarterback, with Dylan Gabriel down right now, so they've got a whole lot to deal with. But Gus Malzahn's collective, they get to 3-2 on the year. Then I didn't watch any of the BYU game. I was not able to catch it, so we'll talk on Wednesday with Jacob Hatch and see if we can get a little report on that. But BYU falls to Boise 26-17. Hank Bachmeier leads the charge there. Good game on the ground. It's a low-scoring affair, but really the problem for BYU was they just weren't very consistent. They got hit in the mouth early in this game. They went up 10-0. Then they just kind of let Boise take control of it, and they let Boise score. I think it was 23 straight points. And there was a stretch in this game where it was punt, fumble, turnover on downs, fumble, turnover on downs for BYU, followed by a touchdown and interception. Their offense was not steady. It was not stable enough. And now they hit a stretch of their schedule that is pretty difficult. At Baylor, at Wazoo, got a nice win yesterday. Home for UVA. So it's 3 games that are going to be difficult for them. And next week we get the Eric Mateos / Jeff Grimes Bowl between BYU and Baylor. It should be a fun one. That one going down in Waco. All right, that will do it for today's show. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at LO Big 12. You can follow me at Josh Neighbors _. Make sure you guys give us a review. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Comment on YouTube as well. Go subscribe there. Until next time, my friends, as always, stay safe.